Impedance flow cytometry can indeed detect early signs of nutrient deficiency by analyzing the cell's metabolic activity in culture. So this detection allows for timely interventions, such as adding more nutrients in the bioreactor. So this can help in the end switching from batch production to fed batch or continuous processes to improve the yield and quality of your production of biologics.
Hey, smart biotech scientists, welcome back. We are in the middle of a conversation on single-cell analysis technologies to gain a better understanding of cell populations. And my guest is Furkan Gökçe, who is the new business development manager at Amphasys, where he is committed to introducing impedance flow cytometry to the bioprocessing industry. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, please go back and now stay tuned for part 2. Are you juggling the complexities of CMC development while trying to enjoy the beauty of biotech? Have you ever wondered if there's a way to simplify bioprocessing? Welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast, where we're diving headfirst into the very challenges you face. We're breaking it down, demystifying the jargon, and giving you the keys to unlock your full potential. I'm your host, David Brohlman, and I get it. With 15 plus years in the biotech industry, I face the same challenges you do. There's a way to simplify and streamline so you can remove complexity, you can skip trials and errors, deliver without delay your groundbreaking therapy to clinics and market, and still enjoy every single step. Do you want to learn how industry experts and I did it? Grab a cup of coffee and your favorite notebook and pen. Now is the time to take your bioprocessing game to the next level. Let's smarten up biotech. So what I'm hearing, Furkan, is that with IFC you need smaller volumes, you can analyze it faster, and you can also get a much higher resolution, so you can get more information about the types of cells or like the state of the cell it is in, right?
Yes, exactly.
So what are some of the most promising applications of IFC in bioprocessing?
So as I said, IFC enables real-time and label-free assessment. Label-free means there will be no incubation needed. And then the sample cells are assessed in their natural state as they are in the culture, perhaps at most requiring a bit of dilution in this buffer. So this enables us to implement the solution for online measurements. Right now we provide, of course, standalone version, which requires manual sampling, and also at-line solution, which requires integration with an automated sampler. We can provide this, or we can work with the existing solutions in the market. But the overall advantage, or most promising advantage, is because we provide single cell precision, high content data. We expect this technology to provide an overall picture of whatever is going on inside the bioreactor. So this technology in the end will provide insights into how cells are behaving in the bioreactors, if they are happy with the culture conditions or not, in the end, which can be implemented as a process analytical tool to improve the processes. So one example is impedance flow cytometry can indeed detect early signs of nutrient deficiency by analyzing the cell's metabolic activity in culture. So this detection allows for timely interventions, such as adding more nutrients in the bioreactor. So this can help in the end switching from batch production to fed batch or continuous processes to improve the yield and quality of your production of biologics.
And what I see also is you could potentially use this information to feed into a model and control your bioreactor, like with some fancy hybrid modeling or like other probes you're sticking into your bioreactor, and you could get much better outcomes of your culture.
Yes, exactly. That's the overall motivation at Amphasys we are pursuing. So we want to provide a solution which is providing not only single cell data, but which can also be integrated with the other available technologies like distilled oxygen, pH, temperature. And our technology also helps detect the contaminants early on, as the contaminants will appear on the measurement as a separate population, or as they will affect the behavior of the target or key cell population on the scatter plots. So we typically provide a high resolution image where you can really follow and track the behavior of cell populations.
And what kind of contaminants can you detect?
It can happen two-way in our technology. So it might happen that the contaminant is a different species with different distinctive electrical properties, let's say size or impedance behavior. One example can be bacterial contamination is in yeast-based fermentations, for instance, where we see the bacteria as an additional separate population on the, let's say, result insights, where you can already get an idea what went wrong and you can act accordingly. Other option is that because in bioprocessing, typically you have one type of cell performing one type of activity, you expect the cell populations to behave basically similarly over and over different runs. So if there is a contaminant, it might be the fact that the cells start behaving differently, different than expected. So we can implement this typical behavior in an AI tool, which would understand any unexpected change in behavior of populations and sign the contaminations early on, even before detecting the individual contaminants, probably.
Yeah, that's great because using a technology is one thing, but if you can integrate into a more global workflow or a system, as we alluded to with probes and AI tools or a modeling, this takes your game to the next level. So how well does it integrate today? So with existing bioprocessing workflow, and what challenges do you foresee?
Nowadays, we do have a standalone instrument that can be implemented as it is. It right now, of course, requires either manual sampling or integration with an additional automated sampler. And I think this is one of the challenges, but this is an ongoing process. So we are looking for partnerships. We do have partnerships to develop it further. But other than this, I would say that solution is seamlessly integrating with the existing workflows. And I personally think this is the solution to go, because with IFC, you are working label free. You can assess the cells individually. You get an idea about the overall population and behavior of the population, which are all key information for process control.
Can you share with our listeners some real life examples where IFC has significantly improved bioprocesses?
I will give two examples. One from actually beverage industry, brewing, which of course makes use of brewing yeast, where we integrated our solution actually for online monitoring to monitor the quality and behavior of yeast in the culture. So by monitoring them in real time, we were able to count the yeast cells, detect their viability, and in addition, we were able to differentiate the dormant cells from the metabolically active cells. The metabolically active yeasts are typically ready for fermentation, and the additional value of our technology to the existing technologies is that being able to differentiate dormant cells from metabolically active cells, you can time the pitching of yeasts in the fermentation tanks properly. So our customers notified us that they were able to improve their yield by 20% just by having this additional information. So the second example will also include the metabolic status monitoring at the high frequency electrical domain, where we were tracking the impedance characteristics of insect cells for production of proteins, the insect cells that were spiked with some virus to induce protein production. And these cells typically store the produced protein inside the cell wall until to a point where they cannot take it anymore and they explode. So by monitoring them frequently using our technology, we were able to determine the exact point where the cells were exploding. This is important because as soon as the cells are exploding, the proteins are going into the surrounding supernatant, and it gets more and more difficult to collect and harvest this protein. So what is needed is to time the harvesting properly to collect the cells at a point they have a lot of protein inside but not yet exploding, and process it accordingly. So we were able to optimize this harvest time with our technology.
Now, this is all exciting. Let's talk about the future of this technology. Where do you see this going towards to?
So as I mentioned before, our vision includes to provide basically an overall self-contained solution as a PAT, which will enable also process control. So one direction is, of course, real-time, online and at-line monitoring of upstream processes, as well as for downstream processes, it is also important. And integration with advanced data analytics for predictive insights, such as AI tools or machine learning, and expanding applications to more cell types and processes. Right now, we work with all types of cells, all sizes of cells, from bacteria to fungi and mammalian cells, insect cells, and even microalgae. And we expect to see a growth in cell and gene therapies, for instance, as an industry in the future. And we believe that our technology can be implemented to improve the quality of cell and gene therapy production as well.
Now we need to address another point, because with all fantastic technologies, there are also drawbacks or limitations or challenges. Let's talk about that for a moment. What kind of cells or scenarios don't work well with this technology?
Well, I would like to refer back to the earlier episodes again, where Apijat was talking about steps to start using PATs. In the end, IFC is also an additional process analytical tool, and similar to other technologies. So the scientists first should identify the critical process attributes. Only then choose the suitable and sensitive and accurate enough technologies, which might be also IFC. So what is key here, also referring back to my motivation to address the complexity of biologics or in general biological procedures, one should keep this interfacing technology as simple as possible for sustainability, to maintain and to ensure the high performing operations or high operation performance of the system. So similar with IFC, I think it is important to understand the specific process needs. This can be, of course, how the cells behave, what kind of cells are inside, whether they are prokaryotic or eukaryotic, whether they are induced or not. We can even detect the induction of cells in specific applications. And it is important to integrate it only when you have a proper skill set and understanding of the technology to your processes. So, of course, all of these will require integration or proper integration with the existing data management or process control workflows.
So let's make this very practical now, Furkan. What advice would you give our listeners who are considering IFC, how to integrate that best in their R&D efforts or process development efforts? How should we go about that?
When implementing IFC as a PAT, as well as all other advanced technologies which are already readily available as process analytical tools, I think it is essential to recognize that development and optimization are ongoing processes. This includes bioprocess development as well as the technology development and integration. So each bioprocess and each cell type are unique, meaning that the PAT implementation requires close monitoring at first, at least, to ensure proper functioning. So nowadays, while artificial intelligence is implemented to handle many routine decisions, the operators or scientists in our case should still not underestimate the importance of initial setup and calibration to achieve accurate results. So I would recommend them to avoid underestimating the initial time required to set up and calibrate, and also develop the skill set to interpret the results properly, especially, as I said, until they have this independency to operate the technology and interpret the results to control the process. And they should also ensure that the sample conditions are well understood. So as I said before, in bioprocessing, so the cells are performing similar tasks over and over again. So they are programmed to produce one type of target, and they are doing this in the similar way in every single batch of the production. So this is why it is important to first understand this behavior of cells, and PATs help understand that as well as control that behavior to the benefit of the scientists or producers. So close attention to such details will help avoid basically common pitfalls, as well as ensure the successful integration of any process analytical technology, as well as impedance flow cytometry to their bioprocessing operations.
And how difficult is the use of IFC compared to the more established cell counting method? Like, the difficulty of the setup relatively comparable? Is it much more complicated? How does this compare to?
So I would assume it would be much easier. So I myself use different cell counting tools over the last years. What we have right now is the standalone version, which is a benchtop instrument, which just requires commercial or typical fax tube which is 5 ml, where you need to transfer your samples from the bioreactor to this tube. And maybe in between, you might need to dilute it, again, depending on the process, the specific needs of the process. And that's the only thing you need. Everything else is automated. You just plug and play, and you get the results. And as I said, we are still developing the technology as a PAT, where everything will be easier. So the sampling, the analysis, and also the cleaning of the system will be automated. So one just need to take the results and implement it for the process control when we have this available, of course.
And since there is no sample prep required, what will be the overall cost of the analysis compared to traditional method? Is this comparable? Is it very different, or how would this end up being?
So what we have different than many other technologies is we have microfluidic chips of different channel dimensions. One can think of these as cartridges that are not single use. So we are providing a tool that can be used over and over again because we also automated the cleaning in between runs. So having a microfluidic chip, which is cheap by itself, and controlling it or enabling it for multiple measurements, and by multiple I mean thousands of individual measurement runs, this takes the measurement per cost significantly compared to other tools. Especially I can compare with conventional flow cytometry, where there is the additional cost of sample preparation. You need to label the cells with some fluorescent stains, which are sometimes costly. You need to prepare the sample by centrifuging and washing and then incubating, which are all costing time and money in the end. So here you just need to dilute the cells and run through the device, and everything else is basically much cheaper compared to the other technologies.
I'd like to circle back to one of my first questions about your career, because as we've seen, the technology you're developing is very interdisciplinary, and you have an interdisciplinary academic journey. So I'm curious, how has this contributed to your work in this exciting development of IFC?
Thank you for this question, actually. So I think that my background has provided me with somewhat deep understanding of both the technical and biological aspects of the biological interfacing technologies, where IFC is one of those technologies. So this enabled me to bridge the gap between development and practical application in bioprocessing. And nowadays, because I'm the new business development manager, I interact with all kinds of people, sometimes scientists, sometimes academic researchers, sometimes business managers. And I now feel that my background helps me communicate in a plain language with every one of them. So I can communicate with a scientist talking about the deep requirements or specifications of the tools. At the same time, I can communicate with the business manager, who is mainly interested in the financial aspects of the tools and not the deep science behind it. So I'm happy that I have an interdisciplinary background, as I can oversee many different aspects of this whole value chain.
Yeah, you're making a good point, Furkan, and this is something I'm telling scientists over and over. I do a lot of communication coaching, scientific communication coaching, and you hit the nail on its head by saying you need to adapt the message to the people you're communicating with. And developing science is not only about technology, it's a lot about communication and interacting with different people, different stakeholders. You said scientists, you have business people, you have people who are not even scientists at all, and you have to tell them why this matters. So yeah, I love that.
Yes, exactly. I experienced a specific focus on translating scientific information in plain English. Especially in the last 10 years or so, there is a tendency or raising an awareness behind this to make public also understand and digest the scientific information. So a lot of academic publishers as well as institutes encourage their researchers to communicate their findings in a plain language so that everyone, even without a scientific background, can grasp the overall idea behind their finding. So I also like to follow the same principle behind this. So whatever I try to talk to, I also try to provide analogies similar to this podcast. And I think this also originates from my interest to write stories and essays, where you also kind of have to find analogies to the daily matters or to reflect on your personal matters, let's say also policy and politics. So you can always make analogies between different domains also to explain scientific, complex, otherwise complex information.
Yeah, this very reason is also something that led me to starting this podcast, because it's another way of communicating exciting science, but in a much more accessible way. And I would say also in a more fun way than sometimes at conferences or just reading a paper. This is definitely a skill that's becoming more and more important to communicate technology and our innovations well. And by the way, scientists, please tell us what you think about this episode by leaving a review, because this will help us make better episodes in the future and also reach more scientists like you. And as we are wrapping up, Furkan, what is the most important takeaway from our conversation?
So we typically talk around process analytical technologies, including impedance flow cytometry as well. The key takeaway is that many PATs represent a transformative technology in bioprocessing. They offer precise, real-time, and even single-cell precision insight that will in the end significantly enhance our understanding and control of cell cultures. So I will once again refer to the previous episode where Apijat summarized the role of PATs. So the goal of PATs is to decrease the time for quality testing and also test the quality during the production itself. So in this way, PAT provides data that helps understand and control the processes while decreasing the costs and improving the quality of the production, which also helps improve the sustainability of our protocols, which is a key topic of discussion nowadays.
Furkan, where can people connect with you?
I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so they are always welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn or by sending an email to me, which we can, I think, put on the information to this podcast summary. I also time to time attend conferences to raise awareness about the technology itself and about PAT, where we might potentially encounter in person as well.
Smart biotech scientists, I will leave all the information down in the show notes. Please be sure to reach out to Furkan. And Furkan, once again, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you very much for inviting and hosting me. It was really a pleasure to be a guest at a podcast that I'm also closely following too.
Hey, smart biotech scientists, thank you so much for tuning in today. Perhaps you want to take your bioprocesses to the next level and integrate innovative technologies, but you're not so sure how to do that, or what the best way would be to do that. If this is the case, I want to offer you a free 30-minute assessment to get started. Just book a call using the link in the show notes, and I'll see you on the call. All right, smart scientists. That's all for today on the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on your journey to bioprocess mastery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, we can empower more scientists like you. For additional bioprocessing tips, visit us at smartbiotechscientist.com. Stay tuned for more inspiring biotech insights in our next episode. Until then, let's continue to smarten up biotech.